Hey young couch co-opers, Strategy Coop here, and we're going to be looking at a new real-time strategy game called Dune Spice Wars that's come onto Game Pass very recently. I'm a huge fan of both the film franchise and the old school real-time strategy games, and I'm going to give you quite a patronising and boring history lesson on Westwood. There were three major games that came out: Dune, and then Dune 2, and then Dune 2000, which was the one I spent most of the time with. We're looking at Dune 1 here, and it was more of a Risk clone, gaining control geographically and making a few sort of diplomatic decisions. Not advanced stuff, but it was very early on in the great video game scheme of things. But this was really, and there's some controversy around this point, this could be the birth of the RTS, the real-time strategy game. Some of this menu mechanics and what you're seeing on the right-hand side of the screen, using a grid system on map, building your own buildings and putting them technically where you want, was a whole new ballgame.
Construction complete.
So we're still in 1992. Command & Conquer came out in 95. So this could have been the birthplace of that canon of games. Absolutely amazing stuff. And gaming historians still to this day argue whether that was the inception point. This is Dune 2000, and it came out in 1998. I remember playing it on a very basic PC. It could have been one of my first ever PC RTS purchases. It came on 3 discs, with the Harkonnen and all the different factions getting their own piece of hardware. It was totally epic on variation with who you chose to fight with, and it set the mold for RTS games going forward.
Fremen dream of creating a green Arrakis, while the Baron Harkonnen wants to paint it red.
And that brings us up to modern day with Dune Spice War. This was teased on an Xbox Reel a while ago. I'm going to say summer, and I was like, oh my god, there's a new Dune RTS coming out, and of course the film had just launched. Everything was really hype for Dune at the time, and I was making sure that I kept this on a back burner of my mind, and as soon as it appeared I would jump on it, because the heritage with that IP or license is massive. Also, the new film sort of reinvigorated my love for the franchise, and we've got modern video gaming systems now, so I'm thinking this could have so much potential to be absolutely amazing. And it is in places and it isn't in others. I'm going through the 5 factions and the differences with those, and the sort of perk characters that you choose to go along with you during a mission. Now, there is a campaign and a conflict mode. There isn't actually any other sections to the game yet. It is still in pre-build, and for its size and for the studio, I'm quite impressed with these visuals. I think it's around 6GB, not massive, so this is not AAA. It is quite early days with ironing out any major glitches.
Roger that. Okay. On the move.
Great fog of war on map and great use of wind and particle mechanics. I do love flying around these little dragonfly buzzard things, looking for areas of interest, but more importantly, looking for settlements and villages in and around your main base. This is not a base builder. It's got more in common with something like Civilization or Gladius, and the best way to pitch this is that it's like a tile-based, turn-based RTS, but with real-time combat, which very much pleases me. It does work. But there is that slight hands-off-ishness that comes with just placing your troops over to a certain marker. They attack, you pull them back. I want a little bit more hands-on control, maybe some environment elements that affect how much damage they take, but you just literally march to a village and attack it. The same goes for any enemy units or platoons in your area. You will march up and just go toe-to-toe with each other. Now, there are some quite advanced units. I'm not going to show you late research tree units because some of them are amazing, and the cool thing is each of these 5 factions has very separate looks and different troops that do very different things, and that bleeds into a lot of the high-end machinery that you then start making. But everyone gets these flyers, and your main job at the start is to take control of regions, find the spice and set up a refinery and just start mining as soon as possible. You'll notice that there's a lot of diplomacy in the game. In actual fact, huge amounts, more than I would like. Frostpunk is kind of the same direction, with huge decisions that need to be regularly made. They kind of pull me out of the immersion a little bit, because I'm all about tactile battles and getting troops over to other bases, and this game wants to constantly stop me to vote for something. There is a very good day and night cycle, and this coincides with a lot of the elemental blights that you can encounter. If your troops are out and exposed, they have a limited amount of time that they can be away from base. So making expeditions and timing a return to make sure your guys don't starve or burn in the desert is pretty cool. I also really enjoy the look of the transition between day and night. I like that in an RTS when it's done well. Riftbreaker has got one of the best out there. One thing that did cut quite deep on the old hurt level, and that was the camera is locked on this view. You cannot rotate around. Checked all the buttons, checked Alt, Control, all the mouse buttons, nothing. You just have to put up with this angle, which is kind of devastating because the unit model and the differences between the factions and the detail on everything, particularly the storms and the wind and the sand, is phenomenal to look at. You do get a zoom in and out, but I really wanted more. That one was pretty devastating actually, and this game would be a real stunner if it allowed you to have a massive perv over all the machinery, sandworms, lightning, Fremen troops.
Reporting for duty.
This game has cherry-picked a lot of really good stuff from Civilization, particularly with the way the tiling system works and governing large regions and having perks and buffs positioned on trading with other factions or allowing a gold market slide or slump. You trade in your spice on a gold market called Dune, and it's constantly changing. Think FTX, but not as bad. And it's cool to keep an eye on what the prices are doing and get rid of your spice when things are high or buy when they're low. That again detracts from the military battle strategy mode of things for me, which I really miss, but I think a lot of you out there might lean towards that Civilization game model. Humankind was another one recently that used that quite well, but again, still turn-based. This is totally real time. The storms randomly generate and they move around the map. They're a little bit like the tornadoes in SimCity, and they will completely mangle your dragonflies, and they'll also hurt a lot of the troops as well. As far as building repair goes, there isn't really much of that. It's to do with troop occupation on a particular tile or in a city, and they will just smash whatever troops you've got in there, and then there's a timer that ticks and the village becomes theirs. Villages are very important. They allow like 2 or 3 slots to bolt on added material. It might be a missile defense system, it might be a recruitment office, and you have so many variables to look after. Things like water, gold, there's this diplomacy meter, there's all this homogeny stuff that you need to get up in order to start expanding your base. It's a very complicated system, and it might need streamlining going forward with a few patches.
Spice crew reporting.
The worms obviously go for the spice harvesters, and you get a warning of it, a tick down, and then you get an opportunity to pull your harvester out. It happens very quickly, as you saw, and losing a harvester is one of the most expensive punishments you can receive early game. So keeping an eye out for where those worms are going to pop up is definitely worth it. Can you fight them? Not to my knowledge yet. Can they be deterred with tech and equipment? Yes, and it's very cool. In actual fact, the tech and research trees for this game are so mind-blowing that I'm only gonna main a single faction until I get to the end of what it's all about, because even the starter troops for the Harkonnen are really different. You've got stealth probes, very different looking structures, and research trees. Everything's got a cool new skin on it, and I very much appreciate that. And having the fact that you've got 5 of these different directions to go in is going to give the game a hell of a lot more longevity. Is it better than They Are Billions? No, but it's a very different game to that. I much prefer this system to the turn-based, tile-based Civilization Gladius model. This is more exciting, it's more random with the experience, and I'm going to stick with it and see what else they pump in, and also try and finish that almost campaign module that they've put in for us all to have a look at early doors. There is online multiplayer, but I want to get my head around how the single player works before logging into that. Now, an online co-op campaign would be really good. Working out and trading with each other and going after organized faction attacks and managing to dominate that map with someone else online would be totally awesome. Is it a worthy sequel to that stuff you were talking about at the start of the video? No. And we might see more in the Dune franchise with it having a revamp on a movie level. One of the great nods that they did put in was the fact that each unit, or platoon rather, ranks up after a kill, and that is depicted in their little icon. And that was one of the best things about Dune 2000 or Dune 2, was that if you invested in a set of troops or a particular vehicle and that thing murdered loads of stuff, it then promoted and became even more badass, which added incentive for you to really look after it. You could have an elite set of machines that you'd ranked up the whole way through a game that you take into a final fight. Amazing stuff, and it's pretty awesome that they actually kept that in.
Yeah? What? On it, boss.
I have compiled a top RTS games list on Game Pass, and this would have certainly been on it. I also have made a list for RTS games that are PC based, full stop, so annotations all in the description. Of course, I have been Couch Coop, and I will see you down.